And welcome back to Slightly Mediocre. This is my friend Creed, and
It's season 2, y'all!
Season 2! Welcome back!
Oh my god. Okay, well, with the chicken. Y'all remember him from last season. Wow, last season, yeah. So welcome back. Thank y'all for tuning in again. Hope you all missed us, Slightly Mediocre. We've been back in business for season 2, or we've been gearing up. And so today we're just going to be talking about some films we saw over the break. Some films we liked, we enjoyed over, a little pause between the 2 seasons. And we're just going to tell you all what we think.
Yeah.
So the 2 films that we saw, and we can talk more about some of the other ones that we saw prior. We saw Aquaman, the newest one. The newest DC superhero movie. Mm-hmm. And Bumblebee, the newest Transformer movie, which, both were great films in our opinions. We had a few, we'll critique them. We had some ups and some downs as usual. But for the most part, they weren't bad. Like, they weren't, terrible, on the level of, Avatar, The Last Airbender live action movie, which was just garbage. So, if you want to make, a rating scale, that is by far, the worst film. I guess, how about you, Wade? For you? For me, that's probably the worst film. Avatar, The Last Airbender, the live action version was just trash. That's, the bottom, that's 0.
I don't know. I still think The Room is probably the worst film I've ever seen.
Okay. What about the best? For me, it's probably one of my best films would be probably Jurassic Park, the very first one, or Empire Strikes Back. Great film, also.
Yeah, I'd say that's on par with that. Yeah, I would definitely choose that. Either Jurassic Park, Empire, or a movie like The Prestige or something.
Oh yeah, that's a great film too. Yeah. So these 2 films were on the upper levels of our rating system. So just
I'd say they're on the upper side of mid grade.
Yeah, I would say that they're not super.
They're not top tier, but they are.
They're not trash.
They're not absolute garbage.
So the first one we saw, Aquaman. What did you think, Wade?
So Aquaman. Now I'm gonna go a little backstory here. So I grew up reading Aquaman in the comics, right? When you look at Aquaman and imagine Aquaman from the Justice League cartoons and the comics and everything like that, he was always this blonde-haired, blue-eyed, white dude in his classic orange and green suit, right?
Even in the video games too, they've done that too.
Exactly. So thinking of Jason Momoa as Aquaman from a comic book standpoint didn't really make sense to me. Yeah. And I was totally against it, first off, because it just didn't make sense and didn't have continuity. But then when you think about the comic without the picture part, just look at the story, you imagine grungy fisherman, just nitty gritty kind of dude. And that's exactly who Jason Momoa portrays in this movie. And, the banter is pretty much Marvel level.
Oh,
there's a bunch of little one-liners.
The cast is great too. They got Nicole Kidman. They got Amber Heard, of course, Jason Momoa. They got Patrick Wilson as the villain. Just a heads up, there will be spoilers. So if y'all have not seen these films yet, just a heads up.
Definitely spoilers. So if you haven't seen them, it's been out for about a month now.
Yeah, a month.
If you haven't seen it, then you probably should, but there are definitely spoilers.
Yeah, so just a heads up with that. But no, the cast was great. They even had the guy, I forget his name, he was the guy that played Jango Fett from Clone Wars, Star Wars Episode 2. Oh, yeah. He played, Jason Momoa's father, which is pretty cool. Yeah. You get to see him again. He's a great actor. But like Wade said, when you think of Aquaman, the comic books, showing... In my opinion, the comic books and some of the recent cartoons, I guess more the kiddie ones, have portrayed Aquaman as this kind of a loser, in comparison to other superheroes, which is sad because the dude's a badass.
And Family Guy has made the jokes. Oh, yeah. Robot Chicken has made the jokes. South Park has made the jokes where, it's like, oh, something's happening on land, and then Aquaman's just sitting there in the water like, stop that now.
Let me talk to my fish.
Yeah, and Aquaman is always kind of portrayed as the loser, and even in like shows like The Big Bang Theory and stuff, everyone's like, "Ugh, Aquaman! I don't want to be Aquaman. Aquaman sucks." But you see this movie and you're like, "Damn, dude,
I want to be Aquaman." Yeah.
Aquaman's kind of rad." Yeah. Even if, you're only Aquaman for the super ripped body.
We all wish we could be Jason Momoa.
Oh, man.
Dude, 6 foot plus.
Don't even talk to my girlfriend about Jason Momoa. I swear to God, if she had the opportunity to leave me for him, she probably would.
Oh, yeah. I agree. I wouldn't leave. Probably like, dude.
You would leave the show to go be with Jason Momoa?
Just to hang out with him. The dude's a cool dude, man. Like, if you've seen videos of the man, like, he just, like, does cool stuff. I'm like, he does, like, freaking axe throwing. He drinks beer just as well as Aquaman in real life. So the dude's a cool dude just to hang out with. But in reality, he's made the role much more badass. Like, I think this was a great rebirth, I guess, for Aquaman.
For sure.
Made the image much better than he was, instead of being taken as a joke. In reality, I'm like, if you look at his superpowers, the guy is almost as strong as Superman, He's like freaking super like fast in the water, like even on land, dude
can breathe underwater.
Yeah, he can talk to I'm like, yeah, talking to fish is weird, but I'm like, if I can command like a freaking bunch of sharks while I'm in the water, I'd do that, dude. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
He can manipulate water and stuff. The dude's badass.
Yeah. And you definitely see that in this movie, because it's kind of like how he became the ultimate king of Atlantis, right? And, if you don't know the story of Aquaman, I definitely suggest that you read into it. But the basis of it is that he's the long-lost king of Atlantis. Mm-hmm. And he's basically, and in this movie, it definitely sets it up for a 2. Because you have Black Manta in it, and then you have his brother, who's like the ultimate baddie. And, they're kind of working together for a little bit, and then, there's a lot of contention and everything like that. Eventually, Patrick Wilson, the estranged brother, or half-brother, I should say, is
defeated.
He's defeated. And it's weird to see Patrick Wilson as a bad guy because, he
was a bad guy in the A-Team, though, right?
I don't remember. But I know he was the owl in Watchmen. Yeah. And that's where, like, I always whenever I see Patrick Wilson, I automatically think, like, Owl from The Watchmen and that really weird sex scene that they had in that movie.
Like the one that are floating around in the little pod.
In the little pod that looks like an owl head. Yeah. It was weird.
Well, everything was, like, on fire around them, pretty much.
No.
That's later on.
Yeah, that's later. But that, like, he presses the button and the fire spurts at, like, perfect timing.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen the movie, I definitely recommend it.
Well, we haven't seen The Watchmen by now.
Yeah, I mean, it's been out for almost 10 years. Yeah.
That's a great film. That's also part of the DC universe, so that'll be pretty cool to see, like, because I know there are plans to bring The Watchmen into the main fold, because The Watchmen is actually part of the DC universe.
And that's interesting, because The Watchmen is it's a graphic novel. It was never it was never meant to be part of the general DC stuff. It was kind of like its own little thing. But that's interesting that they're planning on bringing that in.
Like the whole thing when DC pretty much reinvented itself a few years back with the whole New 52. Mm-hmm. And the original rationale for the cause of the New 52 was that the Flash went to the Speed Force and he mixed up the time. Well, they said actually he didn't have that role to make, he didn't really do the whole time thing. It was actually Dr. Manhattan from The Watchmen who manipulated time and manipulated all the other characters, which puts something like in the leagues above all the other superheroes. And like, if he can manipulate the timelines that Superman, who's basically God by now, in terms of power, he can manipulate like Superman's timeline, etc. That's just amazing. So that goes to show. I don't know, just what stage the DC universe is in, because they're always revamping.
Yeah,
because I know the New 52 wasn't the most popular. They did some changes, so they kind of scrapped it and went back to the original. So they flip flopped a lot, which Marvel does a little bit, but I think Marvel is a bit more
consistent.
Yeah, consistent and not changing their whole timeline.
Yeah,
but
Because, like, when you're changing your timeline as much as DC has, then it's really hard to keep up. And then you lose viewers because then they're like, oh, well...
It's kind of like,
Huh? What?
It's kind of like what Sony did with X-Men. That they knew, like, X3 was so freaking bad, they had to, like, make Days of Future Past to, like, erase it.
Oh, my Lord. So we're getting a little off topic here, but that's what this whole Slightly Mediocre thing's about. So, X-Men. When you watch X-Men 1, 2, and 3, right, you have a general timeline that you follow. And then you watch Wolverine Origins, which is out there. A movie I enjoy because I love seeing the origin movies. Like, I wish they would do more of them.
I didn't like what they did with Deadpool, though.
I don't like what they did with Deadpool.
That's like fake Baraka.
But see, the main thing that bothers me is in the end of X-Men Origins, right, you have Charles Xavier walking out of the transport, right? And then you have Days of Future Past where you see where he ends up losing his mobility, and it's just like, okay, well, that timeline doesn't add up. And then you like kind of watch through the rest of the X-Men movies, and none of the timelines.
And then you got like one where he's in Japan. I'm like, when did this take place?
Exactly, and you know, and a little bit has been fixed with the Deadpool movies of Ryan Reynolds going back and killing off the original Deadpool. But yeah, I mean, that's really the only like clarification we've got throughout this whole thing, because it is, and you know, it's addressed kind of in like, you know, a parody fashion in the Deadpool movies of, oh, which timeline is this? Is this the Ben Kingsley or is this the other one? You know, or the Edward Norton, or you know, whatever it is. So it is a little annoying, but you know, and that's one thing I see with DC Universe movies all the time is, you know, it's really hard to keep up. And I feel like that's one reason why they're not as popular as the Marvel movies, because the Marvel movies, I mean, you can pretty much watch them in order of when they came out and kind of understand what's going on.
Well, like, Marvel has to, like, you know, all their, you know, ducks in a row. DC's only started recently, like, you know, with the new Batman versus Superman. And then, like, from there, I guess from that point onward is the official DC cinematic universe, if you will. Like, I don't think they're really counting, like, all the previous Batman.
What bothers... Well, they're definitely not counting the original Batman, because those were way better. But the problem that...
Shout out to Adam West.
Yeah, Adam West, Christian Bale, you know, like Adam West, rest in peace. Michael Keaton.
George Clooney.
Yeah, George Clooney we don't talk about here.
No, the freaking bat nipples.
Bat nipples.
Bat nips.
But, you know, the main problem I have is that they made a Justice League movie before they made the Aquaman movie and the Wonder Woman movie. Because I feel like you need to have origin stories before you go into a Justice League
Which is
movie.
what, you know, Marvel did with the Avengers.
Yeah, because they did Captain America, they did Iron Man, they did Hulk, they did Thor. They did all those movies, and I'm pretty sure they had an Iron Man 2 out before they even did the Avengers.
Iron Man 2 came out, because in Iron Man 2 they introduced Black Widow.
Yeah. So I feel like, you know, that's the way DC should have done it, and maybe they're coming back, you know, with this Aquaman thing, and they're trying to, you know, fix that. But I definitely think that Aquaman was a step in the right direction.
And I think, and even the box office shows, you know, you look at the box office right now, I think even like a week after it came out, way back in December, it you know, it was outperformed Justice League. In the box office sales, which is great.
It's number one on the charts right now, which is pretty insane. Yeah. Considering, you know, it was a movie not everyone was really jazzed about. Of course, you know, you have all the guys like us who go to see it, and then, you know, our significant others that are female want to go see it.
For Jason Momoa. Which, you know.
But, you know,
it makes money.
Hey? Yeah, it makes money. And the other thing is, you know, like, I know people that refuse to see it because of Jason Momoa. You know, like, a friend of mine, we were talking over the Christmas break, and he was just like, you know, I will refuse to see Aquaman because I feel like Jason Momoa is just a simple trick to get me and my wife into theaters. And, you know, he's like, it's not worth it. It's going to be stupid, and people are only going to be banking on the fact that it's Jason Momoa. And, you know...
Well, I don't think that's true. It was a great film without...
I mean, like, without it,
They had Dolph Lundgren in there, you Yeah. Freaking Dolph Lundgren.
Come on.
Dolph Lundgren, Patrick Wilson.
Dolph Lundgren by himself is a cool dude.
Dude, yeah.
All right, he has like 2 PhDs.
Yeah.
He's a chemical engineer. And
Patrick Wilson's cool too.
Yeah, and Patrick Wilson, and then you got Nicole Kidman, Amber Heard. So
they look great, by the way.
Yeah, you got a bunch of skin tight suits. So like, why not, right?
Yeah. The only thing I will say though, my only gripe about the film was their musical choice. So, just heads up.
He hasn't shut up about this.
Yeah, I know. Watched it. This is bugging me. Okay, so Africa by Toto is one of my favorite, if not my favorite song of all time.
Do you like the Weezer cover?
The Weezer cover is great. So I will say there are covers out there which are great. They do the song justice. They do Toto justice. They hit the pitch just right. Weezer did a great job of, doing...
Well, Weezer just sounded like Toto.
Yeah, because they sound just like it. But, in this film, they did a remix of, Africa by Pitbull. Of all the people to do it, you do it with Pitbull. Come on. You get the weird bald guy from Miami. Anyway, so they
No, he's Mr. Worldwide.
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Worldwide. So you get Mr. Worldwide. They do a remix, and I'm like, I listen to rap, I listen to all genres of music, but you don't disrespect Toto by disrespecting Africa like that. So that's my only gripe. They made a weird remix. I'm like, just use the original, which was pure gold, which is pure gold. Just use the original.
I feel like if Pitbull was to walk in my garage right now, Creed over here would just deck him.
Oh, he'd catch his hand. He'd catch his hands. I'm like, you don't disrespect Toto like that. But that's my only gripe about the film. The film was great. The acting was great. The choice of the actors.
The fact that I finally see with sharks with laser beams on their head was amazing.
We saw that on, oh no, they weren't sharks. It was a low budget.
Yeah.
From Austin Powers.
See, that's why I was so stoked to see the sharks with laser beams on their head.
Yeah. So you're going to see sharks, from 2 scientists. You're going to see sharks going at it with laser beams and other things.
You get to see a bunch of megalodons.
Some freaking kraken-looking things.
Some kraken-looking thing. There's some, weird...
Giant crabs.
Yeah. Weird-looking seahorses.
But yeah, it was a great film. So, my only gripe was, that song. What about you, Wade? You have any gripes about the film?
The only thing is I wish they would have established a little more of how Aquaman became Aquaman instead of these weird little flashback things that they were doing. Other than that, I really have no gripes with the film. I like the quest aspect of it. I love movies like that where, they have a quest aspect. In this case, spoiler alert, the quest was to find the legendary trident. That was pretty cool.
Willem Dafoe was in the film too. So Willem Dafoe's a great actor.
Willem Dafoe, when you say Willem Dafoe, it sounds like a frog, Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe.
But the dude's a great actor. He was in a bunch of great films. Usually he's a villain, but here's actually a good guy. He's one of the good guys in the films.
Yeah.
Normally he's he plays the guy that looks good in the beginning, but then is actually the bad guy. Not in this film.
I mean, he just has that look about him.
Yeah, he was in the, American Psycho and a bunch of other films. But the dude's a good actor. So
Christian Bale was technically the bad dude in
American that one, Psycho. Yeah, and he was in the Boondock Saints, right?
I think so.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
Great film too. But so moving on to the next film that we saw, Bumblebee.
Let's talk about Bumblebee. So,
what do you think, Wade?
Bumblebee. I love the Transformers. Transformers are probably one of my favorite things.
Yeah, we both grew up with the toys, watching the cartoons.
Yeah, and when we go see movies, we see them at Alamo Drafthouse.
Shout out to Alamo. Hey, sponsor us, please.
Yeah, please. Free movies would be awesome. But Alamo Drafthouse, they have this thing where when you're sitting in there waiting for the previews to start, they'll show whatever has to do with the movie. So in this case, we saw Bumblebee, right? Yeah. So they're showing all these old clips of 80s cartoons,
which weren't bad,
of the Transformers, and they're showing the commercials released in Japan and the U.S. of the Transformers toys. And then they decide to show this weird Bollywood thing of Transformers where it's this little kid in a
with a jank-looking Bumblebee.
Okay, but the thing is this kid, he couldn't have been more than 4 or 5 years old.
No.
He is in a full-on John Wayne cowboy attire, right?
Yeah. And instead of like the little revolvers, this kid has two freaking like
9mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he's sitting there with this jank ass looking like really low budget looking special effects bootleg Bumblebee, right? And then they're sitting there doing their little Bollywood dances and everything like that. It went for so long.
Oh, it went for like 10 minutes straight.
And then the best part about it is like 10 seconds right before it's over, this dude decides to pull out his phone and be like, I'm gonna Snapchat it. And then it just cuts to black. I'm like,
you had 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
I was in shock and awe. I'm like, this can't be happening. I'm like, literally, I think what they did was they pulled up a Google search bar and typed in Bumblebee or just the word Transformers, and this POS, this freaking clip from like I'm sure it's a movie.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's some Bollywood film that, and the funny thing is, if
you know the name of the Bollywood film we're talking about, please put it in the comments. So, I have to watch it.
Like, the thing is with this film, like, it started off in 2 parts, which is weird. So the first part, like, it was like these 3 guys in like this car lot. Then they run into like this bootleg Bumblebee, and he starts attacking them. Then this girl or kid, I don't know what it is.
It was a girl.
It was a girl.
It was a little girl.
It floats down from the sky, like all lit up,
and then just breathes fire.
Breathes fire at the dude,
and kills this dude.
Kills the dude. Then it cuts to like another commercial. Then it goes back to the Bollywood video of the kid in the cowboy outfit and the jank Bumblebee. I'm like, what the heck's going on? And like the weirdest thing was like Wade literally said in the very first part, was like, oh, wait till they start dancing. I'm like, what? You can't. And like it literally started dancing. I'm like, what is this? So
I know my Bollywood, man. I grew up with it.
That I guess that was a bit of a downer. But what before the film itself, Wade? What do you think?
The film itself, I felt was it was toned down from our normal Transformers.
Yeah. So it was not directed by Michael Bay. So there's no. Well, then there are explosions, but not as many.
Yeah.
He still produced it, so he put in like a few explosions, a little sprinkle of salt.
I mean, I was happy that it wasn't directed by Michael Bay because Michael Bay, no offense to him or anything, but he sees something, he decides to blow it up.
Oh yeah.
So
gas stations blown up.
Yeah. So one thing that I liked the most out of the movie was, it's the and I've said this earlier, it's the origin story of Bumblebee, sort of. It's how Bumblebee came to Earth and was like the first one on Earth, which is something that I appreciate because, like I said, I really love those origin stories. I feel like the relationship with the girl, Charlie, in it, I feel like that was a little... Like in some parts it was overdone, and in some parts it was underdone. It was weird. It kind of had the dynamic between that.
So basically, the girl lost her father to a heart attack, and she was hurting pretty bad. So, and she's been trying to work on the car that she and her father had been working on,
which was a beautiful 52 Corvette, by the way.
Oh yeah, and then Bumblebee, comes into her life, and then I guess Bumblebee kind of takes a fatherly role. I'm like, she has a family, but she really doesn't get along with them.
I don't think it was meant to be portrayed as like a fatherly role. I feel like it was like a friend role, and it was good. It played into the story, but I feel like it was like there were some things that were just unnecessary.
Yeah, the whole there's like this guy there. What's his name again? Well, what was his name? Memo or something like that? Some kid that the girl Charlie worked with, and like the guy was trying to,
he was trying to slide into her DM.
Basically, and she was having none of it.
Yeah.
But
of course, this movie takes place in 1987, so you can't really slide into her DMs without actually being there in person.
And the kid was really awkward about it. But other than that, that was kind of my only gripe. But I've said this in the past when we talked about some other Transformers films. In general, there's usually plot holes, and this one was, this one had a few. Like,
this one definitely had a few.
If you look at the last Transformer, standard Transformer film, which was like Transformers Last Night.
Yeah.
Basically, it says that Earth is built around the body of Unicron. The big Decepticon, the OG Decepticon, the big bad, baddest of them all, and that. And also, like, you look at the previous Transformers, like, Dark of the Moon, or like the Rise of the Fallen, Revenge of the Fallen, or wherever it is.
Yeah.
Basically, like Transformers have been on Earth like for years. Like the
Yeah.
Fallen's been on Earth. Like he and his buddies made the pyramids. But at the start of this film, like Optimus Prime's like, "Oh, I found this planet called Earth, and you need to go there."
It's secret and secure.
The Decepticons don't know about it. I'm like, but they've been there. It is a Decepticon.
Yeah. So it was really weird because like if you've seen Dark of the Moon, like that obviously took like the original discovery of the Decepticon ship on the moon was 1969 when we went to the moon. Yeah. Right. Supposedly, we're not going to get into that because obviously we went to the moon. Or did we?
Oh, God.
But, like, that was 69. Yeah. And then, this movie takes place in 87. So, like, what? Like,
that's like, to go back to what we just previously said about continuity, this is kind of like, you gotta work on that Transformers.
Yeah, it's like an X-Men storyline.
Yeah, I'm like, it's not as bad, but it's kind of getting there. I'm like, if you keep making these little plot holes, they're gonna add up.
Yeah.
So like, for the film itself, they had good cast. They had John Cena. John Cena is moving out of his wrestler role.
We present you to John Cena.
You can actually see him. You can actually see him. He's not a bad actor, honestly. He did a good job in his role in the film. He's kind of like this military. He works for this agency.
He always plays like the very militaristic role because that's just how he looks.
Oh no, yeah, that's kind of like how The Rock started too.
Well, yeah, but the Rock, like he's kind of moved away from that just because people are starting to realize he's not just him.
Yeah. Well, John Cena was great in Trainwreck.
I didn't see that.
Oh yeah, he was in that film. He does good in comedies. He was in that. He was in.
I know he was in Cockblockers.
Yeah.
And that was it was Blockers. But
yeah, you get the point.
It was good.
And he was in that one film with Will Ferrell and he was like a little cameo role. It's like
and Daddy's Home.
Yeah.
Daddy's Home 2.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like those movies. I don't like Will Ferrell anymore. I used to like Will Ferrell.
Small doses only.
So over the Christmas holiday, I watched Elf for like the first time in about 5 years. And I realized why I don't watch Elf every year because I can't deal with Will Ferrell anymore.
Well, I like him in Talladega Nights.
I like him in Talladega Nights too, but that's just because it's a stupid movie.
That's a good film, man.
Yeah, and then like Step Brothers, I love.
Oh yeah.
But they released a new movie. They released a new movie called like Holmes and Watson.
Oh.
Where it's basically John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell as Sherlock Holmes and Watson, and it's just like I personally have never seen the movie. I do not plan on seeing the movie.
Yeah, that's one film we decided to skip over to break.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna see it because it looks so stupid, and I only have so many brain cells left.
Oh yeah, definitely. You don't want to kill off the rest.
That's what happens when you drink too much Fountain Brew, which is why this season I have the Wampa Cup. We're not sponsored by the actual maker of the cup.
So the cup, the actual maker, it starts with a Y and rhymes with Betty. Yeah, I mean,
you can guess.
You can guess, but
but yeah, I'm watching my brain cells so that way I can give you quality content.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm drinking tea out of my Wampa cup.
Wampa. Just to wrap it up with Bumblebee, that might have been a great film. There's plot holes, but those can be forgiven because I think the film was great. I liked the action sequences; they were good, and there were some slow parts which weren't bad, but they were actually great. And the musical choices were great too. Yeah. Classic '80s music. And
there's still a bunch of little one-liner kind of quips things. Bumblebee, we see from the original Transformers movies that he's always kind of like the jokester.
Yeah.
He's nothing like Jazz by any means.
No, rest in peace.
Yeah. But Bumblebee is always kind of like the one always doing these like little one-liners and everything like that, and that doesn't change at all. Like you're still in a very good time.
What was cool too, I don't know if you noticed it, Wade, but so in the beginning of the film, once again spoilers. In the beginning of the film, they had that battle on Cybertron. And if you noticed, some of the Decepticons, even some of the Autobots, they look, kind of like what they look like in the cartoons.
Yeah.
but they're just CGI, but they look like a lot like what they looked like.
Oh, Soundwave! Oh my
Lord! Finally, thank you.
Oh my Lord! It was so great to see Soundwave as Soundwave, not as some stupid satellite like he was in Dark of the Moon or whatever it was.
That's one thing they did great with this film was that they paid homage to like the frickin' cartoons, even like the comics from in the original toys too. They looked just like that. They didn't look like some weird thing full of wires.
Yeah,
like they do.
Bumblebee was a beetle.
Oh yeah,
which is great because in the recent movies we've only seen him as a Camaro.
Like the latest version of every year is like the newest.
Well, we saw him as a Camaro, and then in the third one we saw him as a Datsun 620.
Okay.
But not a Beetle, and he was a Beetle in the original cartoons. We saw Optimus as the flat nosed Peterbilt.
Yeah.
And then we saw Soundwave as the boombox with Ravage coming out as a tape.
Yep.
That was pretty rad.
The sounds, like they made the original, they didn't make like this weird like dubstep crap.
Yeah.
It actually sounded like the cartoons. Yeah, it was perfect. So that's one thing they did really well. And I think we can attribute that to the fact that Michael Bay did not direct the film.
Yeah, and another great thing is there's only been one person who's been the voice of Optimus Prime in existence, okay? This one dude did Optimus Prime for the cartoons, for any other cartoon movies, and for all the movies, okay? He's Optimus Prime in this movie.
He is Optimus
Hell
Prime.
Yeah.
And Optimus Prime's role was, limited, but he was in it, so that's great.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if they decide to go further with this storyline of, origin stories or what have you. It would definitely be interesting to see that and see if they're going to make, kind of stick more to the cartoon storyline versus what they did in, 2005, 6, 7, 8, whatever, whenever it came out. I think it was 8.
The one with Megan Fox.
Yeah.
And there was no Megan Fox.
No Megan Fox.
Thank the Lord.
No Shia LaBeouf.
Oh, yeah. But no, the great film in my opinion. One other film, just to really quickly put it out there, that I saw over the break was Into the Spider-Verse.
I was going to ask you about that. So it is good.
Great film. So talking about cartoons. So this film is kind of like not a live action film. It's an animated film, but the way they did the animation was really, really good. So this Spider-Man, just to put it out there, this is part of so. The way Spider-Man works, technically, it's still owned by Sony, actually. So Sony still owns the actual rights to Spider-Man.
Even though it's a Marvel movie.
Even though it's a Marvel movie. But even though it's a Marvel character, like back in the day, Marvel actually had given the rights or sold the rights to Sony, which is why they made the Tobey Maguire films and they made the films with Andrew Garfield. Those films weren't bad, but...
Tobey Maguire is still the best, I think.
The OG, Tobey Maguire, So this film, it's produced by Sony, but it's in association with Marvel. So because Marvel now has the rights to Spider-Man, which is why he's been in the Avengers films. He has his own
and why they've rebooted it so many times.
So Sony is in partnership with Marvel in this film, but that's just a little bit of a backstory with it. So it's an animated film, and the animation is great because it's looks like a comic book. It's like comic book style drawings. You got the little bubble that pops up sometimes when the character's sinking, which is really cool. And it just looks like a really good animation style. And I think they should really use that style for more films that you want to do with comic books or superheroes. It's a really good animation style, and the film itself wasn't bad. The storyline was great. It brought in different aspects of Spider-Man. It talks more about Miles Morales instead of Peter Parker, but it's still a really good film. So I highly recommend y'all seeing that. If you're a big Spider-Man fan, don't discredit this film. I suggest really watching it.
So I've heard it's good, obviously, from Creed. I haven't seen it yet. I will probably see it next week.
Yeah.
My major quip with the whole thing, the whole Spider-Man universe, honestly, is the fact that they have rebooted it so many times.
Yeah.
I saw Tobey Maguire versus the Green Goblin. I saw that in theaters. It was an amazing movie. Spider-Man 2 and 3 saw as well. I feel like the Andrew Garfield ones, I saw them, but I saw them begrudgingly. I did not want to watch them at all. And they were terrible. They were absolutely awful. Andrew Garfield should have never been a Spider-Man.
So with Spider-Man, I think most people agree when I say this, is that Peter Parker, for that role, Tobey Maguire played a good Peter Parker, not a good Spider-Man. like in terms of like quick-wittedness and not being cringy with the facial expressions.
Yeah.
Andrew Garfield played a great Spider-Man, but the dude is way too cool to be Peter Parker. Peter Parker's supposed to be like some nerd.
And that's where Tom Holland is kind of coming in.
Yeah, he's a good male. Like, he's a good male between the two.
Yeah, and not to mention, he actually can pull off a 16-year-old.
Oh yeah. Because both Garfield and he was in his 20s, and Maguire was like almost 30, right?
Maguire, like towards the end of it, yeah, he was almost 30. But the thing is Tom Holland, he has the quick-wittedness.
Yeah.
For the Spider-Man role, but he also has the Peter Parker role.
Yeah.
But I feel like in the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, he's really relying more so on like trying to impress Tony Stark.
Okay.
And I feel like that's what most of the movie kind of revolves around, is him trying to be an Avenger.
Like for Homecoming.
Yeah.
With that movie, just to talk a little quick about that movie, it was a good film, but the fact that they made the character of Flash, who's supposed to be bullying Peter Parker, as some dude in the debate team. If some dude in the debate team tried to bully me back in high school, you caught these hands. You kidding me? Some dude in the debate team trying to bully me? Get out of here. Come on. Peter Parker might really have to slap the guy.
Shoot him with some webs, man.
Yeah. But, good film.
Yeah. Good film. So I'll definitely check it out. I feel like, that is a... from what I've seen, it seems very, very good.
Yeah.
It has Spider-Girl in it, which is something you don't really see a
Oh.
lot of. Spider-Girl is kind of like one of those comic book heroes that, you don't really hear a lot about. They made a comic book, but it was very short-lived. Mm-hmm. Pretty much anything Spider-Girl related is pretty expensive now in the collector's market. So it is interesting to see that they brought that back. The whole interdimensional thing will be something that, I'll probably have a little bit of an issue getting my head around, just because it is so weird.
Yeah.
And seeing so many Spider-Mans, but that is, I am looking forward to seeing Peter Parker.
Oh yeah! Shout out to freaking the Simpsons movie Spider-Pig is back online.
Spider-Pig, doing whatever Spider-Pig does.
I will say though, Kingpin, he's the main bad guy in this film. Mm-hmm. The dude's an absolute unit. You will see what I mean when you see this man. The dude's an absolute unit. I'm like, this dude's huge.
So whenever he means unit, he means dick.
Well, okay. I thought this was a family-friendly show. Can't say that.
This is season 2. We're different now.
Oh! But yeah.
So instead of being PG like we were last season, we're PG-13 now.
Okay. Next season will be rated R.
Next season we'll keep it PG-13.
Okay.
I feel like PG-13 is fine.
Yeah.
Basically enough for, the parents to allow them to watch us.
Just enough for us to get demonetized.
Yeah! We're not making money. We're not in it for the money.
So we're not going to make money this season. Don't worry about it. Just stick around for the crap.
It's not like we made money last season.
No, we got about $1.50.
Not even that. we looked at our views from last season, and you guys have been slacking. Okay?
Oh, y'all need to step it up.
You need
step it up. Comment below.
You know how many views we got last season?
How much?
We got like 40.
Oofa.
You know how many videos we put out?
Big baller brand.
We put out like 17 videos last.
Damn.
And then we got 40 views. That's less than one of like one.
We gotta contact the Russians.
Yeah.
Watch out, YouTube. We're going to be the next PewDiePie. We're going to contact the Russians.
I wish we were the next PewDiePie.
I wish, dude. Just contact India, get T-Series, hop on us. Oh, man. But that's just a spitballing. But, hey, thank you all again for tuning in. Season 2, we're excited. We got a bunch of videos lined up to show y'all.
And, spoiler alert, you get to see me naked.
Yeah.
I think so.
Not naked, but mostly, yeah.
Mostly naked.
Yeah, and he is not an absolute unit.
No.
Hey!
Not at all.
Oh, but hey, thank you all again for tuning in. We enjoy making these films. Wade and I always have a good time just talking and chatting. Let us know what y'all think below, what y'all want from us this season. And thank you all again for tuning in. Don't forget, this is slightly mediocre.
Yeah, and, definitely keep watching for what we have in store, because we got some cool shit.
Season 2, boyo!